Hey guys, this is the in-depth review of the Palmetto Armory PSAK47. Mine, I believe, is like a Gen 2. This one came with the Mo furniture, the Magpul original equipment. Um, Obviously, it's not wearing that anymore, but that doesn't really change the performance of the firearm itself. If you want to know where I got any of this stuff, like the cheese grater, heat shield on the top, and the wood furniture, and the pistol grip itself all came from one place. And if you want to know where that is, just put it in a comment and I'll try and answer it. This isn't going to be like a super serious professional video or anything. I'm just a regular guy. I don't have like an ammo sponsorship or a range membership anywhere fancy, anything like that. I just go out with my buddies and shoot in a big field of private land. So this thing has reached out to 450 meters and stuff. So I don't have any like inset footage of me shooting or anything like that. You're just gonna have to take my word for it that it can hit a mini steel sized target really easily at 120 meters after running around in gear doing drills in and out of vehicles with just the iron sights. So basically, works fine. I've got about 2,000 rounds through it. Most of it's Golden Tiger. The only thing I've noticed is I had one really hard primer, which was, that only happens right in the middle of a stage. So it was like halfway through a magazine, so I dumped that mag. I was actually shooting this portion of the stage out of the back of a truck bed onto that steel at about 120 meters. So no big deal, just dumped that mag out, put a new mag in, rack, and then it worked. And then I had to go get an ammo box, run back, and resume shooting from the same location. And I actually ended up putting that mag back in, and it worked just fine. So maybe a little bit of me bumping the charging handle on its way back there. I was kind of in an awkward shooting position, trying to get all the way up on the sights and stuff and have a really good cheek weld, and terribly out of shape, and huffing and puffing, getting the stock right and everything like that. But that's why you do stuff like that, proofs your gear out, and it's not just sitting on a bench shooting at steel or shooting laying down in a field shooting at bright white spray printed stuff on at 100 meters to look good for the gram and the YouTube. So that's the only issue I had with the rifle as far as feeding and reliability. Now, some issues that I had that I'd like to point out are this bayonet lug. I do have a bayonet for this. It's one of the cool Bakelite sheathed ones. I should have got it out, but I didn't. It's somewhere. As you can see, it's not finished because I took the finish off with some sandpaper and a little bit of dremeling because it did not fit, which is something that I had happen on the magazines. So this was issued from Palmetto State Armory with a one of the PMags. The one that it came with had the dark red or the maroon tab on the bottom of it, and it worked just fine. Kind of is really snug fit, but it did work and feed and everything. So I got 3 more PMags that ended up being a newer iteration of the same thing. I believe the one that was issued with it did not have the steel tab. The one that was issued with it had the polymer tab like this mag does that I bought basically just for looks to look cool, but this mag also works. And so there was no issues with that. Now when I got my 3 newer magazines of the Magpul that do have the steel tab on them, they would not work at all. And I ended up doing a little bit of research and it's like, okay, it's an AK, it is what it is. It's an AK and it's an American-made AK. I should have expected to run into an issue at some point. So the steel tabbed polymer magazines weren't working. I only tried, by the way, one set of Bulgarian surplus mags that also did not work, which obviously were all steel. Haven't tried any steel mags since. I would like to get a steel mag or two just because AK with wood furniture needs a steel mag, but so what I ended up having to do was sandpaper the hell out of the tabs on the magazines, and they worked a little bit better, but not very reliably or consistently, and definitely not anywhere near fast enough. it was just a nightmare. So what I ended up ultimately doing was actually doing a little, very bit of careful dremeling up on the magazine catch itself. Not anywhere in the magazine well or anything like that to the receiver or even to the trigger guard. Just this one little replaceable part where I said, you know what, if I mess this up, whatever, I'll replace it. I probably wouldn't even had to do any of this. Honestly, Palmetto State Armory's customer service is so good that I probably could have just told them about the problem and I had it sent back to them and they would have fixed it, but didn't really feel like doing that. Kind of wanted to just do it myself because I'm an idiot. But it worked. So now all the magazines that I've tried with it since, except those Bulgarian steel mags, work just fine. So basically all I had to do to the magazine catch was take the finish off. That's really all I did. I didn't like widen it or flare it or really do any kind of structural change or anything like that. All I really did was smoothen it up and take the finish off. Am I worried about that rusting? No, I'm not, because in oh crap situation, I'm probably taking one of my several ARs and not this thing. This is mainly a for fun rifle. It's nice to have something in 7.62 by 3.9. But I'll tell you, I was really impressed with how easy it is to actually use. The iron sights are obviously AK irons. And the only problem I really found with that is the short sight radius. Other than that, it works fine. So it's really smooth action on the charging handle. The safety on mine, unlike some, is not too loose and not too tight. I think it's just right, even though there is a trick to fix that, and I won't go over that because AKOU has plenty of AK tricks that are way better filmed and discussed than anything I could do. So basically this rifle for me is a win. I absolutely love it, and I'm not telling you to run out and buy one. I will say that I think that American-made AKs are, I mean, now we don't really have an option unless you want to go hunt for a used Wasser or something like that, which there's no problem with unless, you know, it's had a lot of home gunsmithing done to it. But of course, I'm never going to sell this one. This is my AK. It'll be my son's AK, so that's why I felt comfortable doing all this stuff to it. This is the flash hider, by the way. It's a standard one that came with it. I did have a different one that was like a fancy break one on there, and I guess it might have done a little bit for the recoil. I didn't really notice a difference, and I just enjoy it looking like this more, and it really doesn't recoil that bad at all. I mean, it just doesn't. You know, it's obviously a little bit more than 5.56, but it's different, and, you know, when you're running around on the clock and doing all kinds of stuff, you just don't really notice it. It's fast to shoot. One thing I will say is the trigger on mine is incredibly nice. I don't know what's going on with that. It's probably just super worn in because I do dry fire this a lot. And like I said, it's got some rounds through it, but the trigger on mine is incredibly nice. Hold on. All right, so the weapon is clear. Okay, it is pretty smooth to pull back until like the very end gets a little gritty, but that's pretty typical because you're going over the hammer. It's pretty typical of AKs. For the ones that I've experienced, this one's pretty damn smooth, and it better be for a brand new one, right? So the weapon's clear. Like I said, here's the safety. It clicks really nicely, doesn't get hung up. It's not too hard to do either way. I think it's just perfect. And even though you're probably, you know, I'm not Grand Thumb and I can't really ghost it for you or anything, guys will still want to see. I don't have a trigger gauge or anything, but folks will still want to know. So there's your take up right here, and then it hits a wall and it's kind of springy, but it's really there, right there. Can you hear that? That was quick. And I'll tell you, it's kind of a lot of travel. This is over travel right here, but man, it is great. It is for a service rifle, especially. It beats some of my ARs. I'm not like a trigger guy. I don't change out triggers and spend money on triggers and stuff. I have an M9 with a standard trigger, Glock 19 Gen 3 with a standard trigger, several ARs with standard triggers, K98 obviously with a standard trigger. I'm not an aftermarket trigger guy because when I was in the Navy, I was a duty armorer and a small arms gunnery line coach. And if you can shoot a tight group with a 15-year-old A2 with a wobbly stock on a flight deck You know, it's just trigger is just not that important to me. I care more that it works. Now, it's not like a G36 9-pound Bungees trigger, but this trigger, particularly on my example, sample size of 1, of course, is very nice. So there's that if you care about it. Like I said, 1 hard primer strike, but I've never used brass or anything like that, and it's fed everything I've put through it. But primarily, I do like the lacquer-coated steel case stuff. If you're curious, this is actually the sling that was issued with my Yugo M48. I just thought it would be kind of neat because this is like the oldest thing I have. So I put a leather kind of German-style sling on my Mauser, and I took the nylon sling that was actually correct for the Yugo Mauser and put it on here just to look like it was a thrown together AKs. That's kind of what I was going for, and I'm really happy with it. I have no regrets. It's one of my favorite rifles just because of how fun it is. No, it's not as easy or as fast to use as an AR, but it is a lot of fun, and I can't really say anything bad about my Palmetto State Armory AK, other than, like I mentioned, the magazine fitment issue and the bayonet lug issue, and really all I did was sandpaper the finish off. So if you guys have any questions about anything, leave it in the comments. I don't really have my notifications on for YouTube just because I don't get lost in comment sections, and I'm not really a content creator. But like I always say, if you're just a regular guy like me who's looking to spend money maybe on something for yourself and it's your own actual money, and you want the opinion of someone who, 1, actually knows small arms outside of video games, and 2, isn't influenced at all by promotions or YouTube nonsensory, I'll try and answer your question to the best of my ability. Thanks, guys. Shoot safe.